We have the entity here, and those relations with the universe and universal forces, as are latent and exhibited in the present entity. In entering, we find astrologically those conditions as may be termed astrological aspects would vary considerable as respecting the development of the present entity, through the application the entity has made in the various experiences. In the personalities as are exhibited and innately seen, one of the turn capable of being both business and domestic, which is one very rarely found, that a success may be made in each. In the details as are seen, in which the entity is especially gifted, much may be accomplished by the entity in same. In the conditions as made for the developments, the same detail in the domestic life should be made as is made, or capable of being made, in the business or marital affairs. In the astrological aspects, we find these innate and finding expressions in many ways in the experience of the entity. In Venus we find the love influence, making for the conditions that bring for cheerfulness in the lives whom the entity may contact. It may be developed by the entity to the point where same becomes more and more of the life's work and life's experience in the present development. In the same influence, makes for home ties, home surroundings, and friendships that are lasting and sincere. The body and the entity, both, find that when confidences are broken, there is as of a wounded feeling or experience, hard to be met or understood. It may be developed to the point where more of the love expression, and less condemnation in the weaknesses of others, may be builded in the entity, while shortcomings, broken confidences, false friendships, are ever to be abhorred, yet condemnation for such is condemning self, and should not be held as grudges, for that builded or held against another is builded within self's own environ, and must be met in some manner or form. In that relation Jupiter makes for the bigness, the noblenesses, as are seen in the entity's experience, as well as that for the business and social relations, with which the entity will ever find itself surrounded, able, capable, of meeting peoples in many conditions, positions, in physical and in mental conditions, that are pitied by the entity, and aid through the cheerfulness of manner, or demeanour and mien, may bring to others that which is making for the littleness in self, the greater understanding through the application of the tenets held by self, or the entity, as the ways and means of bringing aid, self-understanding, and of self-some confidence in self. As the entity often finds, in social and business relations, those who have lost hold upon themselves, through that of some act or some condition in the lives of others. The entity's abilities lie in that direction of bringing aid and understanding to others, through the gaining of that hope that ever lies within each individual, that may be awakened to that divine that is within every entity of its relationships to its creator or to the creative energies as may be manifest through a human soul. In the relationships as influences found in that of Mercury and of Mars, brings those conditions of mental abilities, mental felicity, in the experience of the entity with others, forcing, as it were, at times, through social and business relationships, to often match wits, as it were, with others. Will the entity hold fast to an ideal, and the ideal being set in him, who is the way, and the truth, and the light, the entity may ever be able to meet those conditions as they arise in the experience of self and self's relationships to others. Many may be the days of the entity in this experience, and many will the entity but keep in that accord, that adornment with the conditions that arise in the material, the social, the business relationships as have been or being established in the experience of the entity. Many will call the entity blessed. In the experiences, or appearances, and the influence same have upon the present experience of the entity. In the one before this we find in those days, when there were the beginning of the establishing in the present sojourn of the entity those of their homes, those of the councils, those of the settlements in the land. The entity then in the name of Marion Dare brought much to the peoples in that day and land, being among those of the first to bring the real blood of the native land in the nativity of the land. In this experience the entity gained, though through hardships, yet in the latter days were the entity's counsel sought by many, both of the natives and of the peoples, who gradually grew into first the little forts, then the state, and the entity gained through this experience. In the present, the homeland, to the entity is ever the best land, while those affairs in the experiences of individual interest as to the effect, association, and of the division that comes between that of heritage and of the surrounding conditions, or of does the entity ponder with the question of heritage, or hereditary and environmental. In the one before this we find in the land known as the Trojan. The entity then among those that were of the peoples that were sought to prevent the entering into the city, and the entity, while in the same sex, defended with self, in bodily form, those that invaded same. Many were the varied conditions as were encountered by the entity during that experience. Many were the conditions that brought for disagreements, misunderstandings, discontent. These often arise in the entity's present experience, through those that surround the entity in closer relationships. In the name Muriel, in the experience in the present, these bring for those of decided likes and dislikes, yet the ability to make friendships with the high, the low, the aged, the young, those of high estate, those of the more ignorant class, all, to the entity, have their own conditions to meet, their own problems to face, and the entity could, does, and may, counsel well, even as in the experience the entity had in a latter period. In the present much may be gained by the entity in the study of those two periods. In the one before this we find in that land known as the Canadian land, when there were many changes in the climatic conditions, and what was then of a semi-tropical nature became, during the entity's period and sojourn, that of the glacier or ice period. The entity, during this period, gained much and lost much. Gained through the assistance as given them the establishing of the homes, even when forced to move to other lands, and then known among the peoples as the mound builders of the central northwest. In this the entity lost, through their using for self those aggrandizements of selfish interests. In this the entity lost. In the name Anile. In the present we find those influences come as oft tempt the entity innately, as to whether to think first of self and self's interest, or of those whom the entity may aid. In this the entity will gain much, through seeking first to be true to self, and through same will never be forced to anyone, not as selfish interests, but as to the protection of those whom the entity would aid. In the one before this we find in that land known as the Egyptian land, during the period of dissensions and of banishment of those that would establish the laws and the relationships of man to the creative energies, and man's relationship to man, making for the first moral codes that afterward were builded in the chosen people's land. The entity of the peoples to whom those were banished, aiding as a pupil, and later as an helpmate to those that afterward came back into the land, as teacher, counselor, guide. The entity not of those that laboured as the servant, but as the companions of those that were returned, and especially assistant to the companion of the deposed priest. In this the entity gained, and many other tenets the entity holds from this experience, as to the relationships of the created to the creator, while many may term the entity's feelings, as expressed, as not wholly of a religious nature, those of the Christian, or of the fellow feelings, are innate within the entity, and may find expression most in doing for others. As to the abilities of the entity in the present, as is seen, twofold may be the entity's work. Few are given the ability to be both business and of their home, but both may be builded by the entity. Keep true to self, to self's own ideals. Lose not hold upon these innate feelings of there must be something done each day to manifest that love as is felt within self, as must be shown as the reflection of that felt by self to the Creator and the created. Ready for questions. Q. Was the entity ever successful as a mother in the home, to the exclusion of others? A. Only as to others and to the home combined. Has the entity ever succeeded? In those periods when there was moving in the land, from changing and environmental forces, the entity established in the home and lost. Q. What was the name in the Egyptian period? A. Undian. We are through for the present.